Hello and welcome to pmclounge.com. This is Lounge Fever, a series of videos where we try to answer your questions. And since these days we are covering agile topics, we tend to receive questions around agile. And one of the questions that I really wanted to take up was the difference between a product backlog and a sprint backlog. As always, first link in the description will be an important playlist. Usually it is an article, but this time around it is going to be a playlist of all our agile videos. And I share that because it is important for you to know the basics of agile, the basics of Scrum, how Scrum works, in order to understand this question and then understand the answer to this question. Now, all that being said, I hope you appreciate the fact that this looks like a very delicious slide. A quick reminder, please do like this video, at least for the sake of that delicious slide. That seems to be the only way YouTube is going to let you know every time we upload new content. So let's talk about the product backlog. Product backlog is essentially the list of everything needed in the product. Now, this is a very wide definition, right? What do you mean by everything needed in the product? This means all the features, all the bug fixes, all the possible future enhancements, everything that is needed in the product is actually part of the product backlog. So what happens is Scrum teams, they work on ongoing releases of a single product. Now, this essentially means that the product backlog is never complete. And if we go back to this definition, which was obviously a broad definition that said that a list of everything needed in the product, well, when it comes to everything needed in the product, this is an unending list. And that is exactly what point 2 says, that a product backlog is never complete. You will always have stuff that is needed in the product. Sometimes based on the market demand, sometimes based on the value you think it is going to provide, sometimes based on the customer complaints. The first version of this product, because we are talking about ongoing releases of a single product, the first version of this product is going to contain requirements that is best understood by everyone in the team and everyone in the team who was initially involved. So the first version of this product contains requirements best understood by everyone, and from there on, once your 1.0 version is out, from there on it is the responsibility of the product owner to keep adding or removing items in your product backlog based on how valuable they are to the company. And again, like I said, this could also include customer complaints, this could also include customer requirements, this could also include anything that the product owner thinks is going to be valuable to the company. So that's what product backlog really is. A very important point to understand here is the fact that a product backlog is never complete. A good example, Windows 10 was supposed to be the last major version of Microsoft Windows. But Windows is now going to be upgraded to Windows version 11 because some of the product backlog items might be too huge to basically be accommodated in a minor release 10.x.y.z, right? Because they thought that these changes are too huge for minor releases. Let's do a full-fledged Windows 11 release. So product backlog is never complete, even when company tells you that they are not going to do a release of this product, a major release of this product from here on. So now that we know what a product backlog is, let's talk about the sprint backlog. What is a sprint backlog exactly? Now, this is where the first link in the description comes in handy, because if you don't know what a sprint is, you are not going to understand what a sprint backlog is. In fact, there's a very important video. It is called Scrum 101. I'll share a direct link to that video, the second link in the description. If you don't know what Scrum is, what Sprint is, do check that video out and then come back to this video, because then you would understand what a sprint is and you will be in a position to understand what a sprint backlog is. So for those of us who already know what a sprint is, essentially a sprint is a 2 week, 3 week, 4 week long time box, right? And everything that you need to do in that time box is listed in the sprint backlog. So everything that you plan to build during let's say a 2 week long sprint, it will be listed in the sprint backlog. Now, what do we mean when we say everything? This means features, this could include bug fixes, this could include service requests from your customers. So all that you plan to deliver in 2 week, if your sprint is 2 week long, that is, all of that will be listed in the sprint backlog. Now, a good question to ask here is, we know the product backlog that contains everything that needs to be part of the product. How and where do these items come into the sprint backlog from? So, of course, these items come to the sprint backlog from the product backlog itself. And items here are again your features, your bug fixes, service requests, everything, right? All of those are part of the product backlog. And from there on, whatever that you can deliver in one sprint is moved to the sprint backlog. So if you have 2 week long sprint, you will have certain items moved from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. And then on your, let's say in your daily stand-ups, you are going to look at your sprint backlog and you're going to assess where you are and if you would be able to meet and complete all the items that you have taken in as part of the sprint backlog. So this is something, this movement of items from product backlog to sprint backlog is something that is done during sprint planning. So while you are working on one sprint, you could be planning for the future sprint as well. So you might move certain items from the product backlog to the sprint backlog for the second sprint while you're already working on the first sprint. So it's a cycle. It goes on in a cyclical manner, and that's how items are moved from product backlog to sprint backlog and then eventually delivered at the end of each sprint. And you would have read it somewhere, I'm pretty sure, that at the end of each sprint the team produces a shippable product. It is also known as an increment, and this increment is reviewed and then delivered. Now, it is also possible that you don't deliver this increment to the customer every 2 weeks. It is possible that you do a release to the customer once every 3 months, and that's where all these increments are combined and delivered. But essentially, at the end of each sprint, you are supposed to have a shippable product, an increment that can be delivered to the end customer. If you are looking for practice questions for your PMP exam, head over to pmclounge.com/PMP practice questions. Everything's free. So that's all that we had at this video. I hope you were able to understand the difference between the sprint backlog and the product backlog. If you have any questions for us, do drop them in the comments and we'll definitely get back to you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the bell icon and don't forget to check out the website pmclounge.com, your number one free PMP resource. Thank you.